Hey guys, Scott here. Today I wanted to go over a pretty controversial topic in the gaming industry. It's the whole concept of FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Basically, in a nutshell, it's when a gaming company releases like a cosmetic or something like that. Usually it's not a pay to win thing, it's just something that is aesthetic and it has a limited time availability, which boosts the initial appeal of it and makes more people buy it because they don't want to miss the chance to purchase it. That's in a nutshell what it is. So I personally don't suffer from this at all. I don't even understand it. If there is a skin on the store or something like that that is only available for a week and I miss out on it and I don't get it, I don't care. It's just a skin that changes the appearance of my character. It doesn't affect the game at all. There's no advantages or anything. So I truly could not care. And in fact, sometimes I even like it when there's like a limited time Halloween event. It shows that you were there during Halloween 2018. You have this skin. That's cool. Blah, blah, blah. But just because I don't get it doesn't mean it's not a real thing. So I had to do a bunch of research on it because I know a lot of people do genuinely suffer from this and a lot of companies do prey upon this. So I did a bunch of research on this and came to a number of pretty interesting conclusions from it. Now, interestingly enough, the whole concept of FOMO has been around pretty much since the dawn of society. It comes from, a lot of articles say, the need to be part of a group. The idea is someone is having a positive experience and you want to also share in that positive experience with them. Now, the actual term FOMO really started to rise to prominence in about 2004, kind of when Facebook started rising. And this was caused by things like seeing pictures of your friends at a party or something like that, you not being there, and you feeling loneliness and anxiety on that fact that they were having a positive experience and you were not. Now, recently, people have tried to attribute this to the gaming industry in general, and it's stretched a little bit. It's not quite the same thing, but it still falls upon the area of companies preying on people that don't have a particular level of self-control or things like that, which should still always be viewed with kind of disdain. Now, there are not too many articles and research studies done on the actual gaming aspect of it. Most of the articles I found were about FOMO in general, which is a very widespread thing, but it's mostly real life related things, or at least social media and online things. There are not too many things related to games that I found in terms of actual complete studies, and in fact, most of them that I did see discussed the aspect of FOMO in gaming were just like blog entries and things with no actual studies. There's never anything that's been done like, hey, how many people suffer from this and how much money is extracted from them from this game? Is it actually the main driving factor of developers putting these things in and things like that? Now, I understand why there are not too many studies on that, because why would a developer go, yeah, come look at our financials, we're ripping these dipshit whales off, haha. Like, I understand why there's not much research on it, because game companies are not really going to share that, but it doesn't change the fact that a lot of people are just sort of making stuff up and attributing a very real condition to something that exists in games. Again, not to imply it's not real in games too. I feel like I worded that badly. The point is, it is absolutely a real thing. My question is, how impactful is it on the actual industry itself? Because it definitely does exist and people do suffer from it. But it's sort of interesting that the discussion that we are having is exploiting people that have lower mental fortitude for these things a good thing? Obviously, that's a bad thing. We know companies are doing it. You know, the term whales are basically people being exploited by companies that know that they will give them a lot of money for these things. Now, the whole limited time offering thing is a component of that. It's not the sole component of that, but companies do prey upon people. That's just a known fact of society and the world. That is not something I'm here to debate whatsoever. The thing is, we really argue about what is the level of acceptance. That is the actual nuanced discussion there. What amount of exploitation do we allow? Because every game company exists to get money from you. So to some extent, you could say every game company is exploiting people in some way. And I think people on both sides, they stretch the argument too much. You have me, who I used to have the opinion like, just fucking don't buy it, who cares? Obviously, that's not helping the situation at all. And then you also have people on the other end that are like, if a company makes money in any way, it's exploiting, which is silly on the other end too. So we have to find that line where we accept a level of exploitation. I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about here. So we can discuss two games that do the exact same exploitative practices with limited time cosmetics and things like that, and yet one game will have no one shit talking them at all, and in fact they get praised, and one game will be shit on relentlessly. I'm going to bring up two games here. First one is Path of Exile. Path of Exile fits every single criteria of a predatory monetization scheme. They have limited time cosmetics from leagues that are usually lasting about 3 months. They have supporter packs that you can't really get the things of again. There's a lot of exclusive things. Some end up going long term, but a lot of them are exclusive things you can never really get again. And this is meeting that criteria of a limited time cosmetic used to boost the appeal of it to generate more revenue in that time period. So that fits the exact definition of the predatory practice of FOMO. And yet Path of Exile doesn't really get shit for it. And their cosmetics are really expensive too. They are insanely expensive. They're like $10 to $50. Like they are some of the most overpriced cosmetics I've ever seen. And yet they don't really get shit for this. And what's the reason for that? Well, the game developers, Grinding Gear Games, they've shown to be they're a good company. They seem to really care about their game. They seem to care about their consumers. And the game itself, very importantly, is a free game. The game you don't have to pay a cent for. Now, obviously, if you play it for more than 30 or 40 hours, you're going to want to get stash tabs and quality of life things. So you're really going to probably end up spending like, $20-30 on it just to have a good or better time. But the fact is, you can spend 0 cents on the game and play it for thousands of hours. That is a really good deal. And so, because they're so generous with their monetization scheme, even though they do have limited time, overpriced cosmetics, the definition of FOMO here, no one really gives them shit for it. So it's not, do we allow it in games? It's what's the level we accept in games. And with Path of Exile, we accept a lot of it because their cosmetics are even more expensive than most games I've seen. So the line in the sand for PoE is way up there. Now we look at a game like Dead by Daylight, which is a paid game with paid DLC and paid cosmetics and limited time things. So we have a much lower level of acceptance. The devs have not garnered nearly as much goodwill as the developers of Path of Exile. Their monetization scheme is not nearly as consumer friendly. And so despite the fact these two companies are doing the exact same thing, one of them is like, it's fine. You guys do you. You got to make money somehow, right? And the other guys are literally Hitler for doing the same thing because they're just simply not as generous with their monetization system. So it's interesting there that the discussion is how much do we accept, and that's related to how much goodwill the developers have garnered over the years and how generous their overall monetization system is. And so you can have a varying level of opinions on games depending on the game itself. It doesn't really matter about the concept of FOMO. We do accept it. It's just how much is accepted depending on the game. And I find that interesting. It's a little hypocritical of people to be okay with it in one game and not okay with it in another game. That just seems like it's not really right there. So it's an interesting discussion. I think the whole topic warrants a lot of very interesting conversation there. And then there's the whole psychological aspect of that as well. From what I've seen, the real issue is not necessarily the fear of missing out of the thing. It's the lack of willpower to prevent you from rationalizing that you don't need it. So really, it seems like these game developers are targeting people that have a lack of self-control, not ones that will just feel a bit sad that they didn't get a skin there. The real important financial aspect of this from all the articles I've seen is their inability to regulate their own purchases. And unfortunately, from all the research I've done, it seems like if a particular game does have like virtually no predatory practices, that person will still suffer financially in the exact same way in other aspects of their life. And I obviously do not mean to victim blame here. Of course not. But the point is they are going to suffer kind of no matter what, and they need to get help for a very serious life-ruining problem because that is a very, very fucked up thing to have. If you have no self-control, that can lead to so many bad things in your life. And the fear of missing out is only exacerbated by the inability to regulate your emotions on that. So it's one thing to feel sad you didn't get something. It's another thing to not accept that emotion at all and purchase it to prevent that fear, to prevent that darkness from welling up inside of you. And that, I think, is what a lot of people think that the game developers prey upon. It's the people with no self-control, not those that will be sad that they can't get something at a current time. You have to have both aspects of it for it to be something that game devs can prey upon. And when you look at it like that, yeah, that's obviously pretty fucking evil. But for the most part, I feel like it's a grim reality we have to accept that I can't imagine that will ever go away. That has existed since the dawn of people selling things to people in order to boost the inherent seemed value of an object. I know that seems cynical, and the problem is I don't know really how to fix that, because we're at this level where some people, we will accept some level of the exploitative practices because people know that games have to make money to survive. And that seems fucked up that we accept it to begin with. I feel like you have to go all in or not. You either are for that or against that. But the line in the sand argument there is just so fascinating to me because people do accept it. It's just the level of goodwill is seemingly more important than the practice itself, which, I don't know. It's a very interesting topic, and I really love discussing this stuff. I find it to be very fascinating. Again, I understand I personally don't suffer from this, so I can't get into the headspace of somebody that does suffer from this, and I am absolutely not going to minimize the suffering that people do have from this. I would just really love to see like the aspect of people saying that they're preying upon kids, for example. This is an argument I see from proponents of this a lot. They're preying upon kids to get money because the kids have no self-control. They simply haven't even learned it yet. And then there's the obvious counter-argument of, well, how are the kids paying for it? And the counter-argument to that is, well, they take their mom's credit card. But I can't imagine in companies are subsisting solely on credit card purchases from a stolen credit card that the people don't check their logs for and can dispute when they see it. That doesn't seem like a consistent flow of revenue there. What I think it actually is preying upon adults that actually have pretty well-paying jobs, but actually have the mental condition of no self-control. That, I think, is the real demographic. I don't think kids are nearly as targeted as a bit older people. I'm not saying, middle-aged men or anything like that, but people that have a stable job, but never got over their mental condition of not having any self-control or having the fear of missing out, which, again, is a very real thing that if you have that, you really need to try to address that because that will ruin your life, and it's a horrible condition to have. So that's who these game devs are really going for. Those are the people that are going to be the whales for your gacha games and things like that. So anyway, I just wanted to just randomly rant about this because I found the whole topic interesting, how we accept some of it depending on how nice the company is. One final example I would love to give about that is Baldur's Gate, Larian Studios. They are the poster boys of a good dev team. That speech that Sven gave at the Game Awards about how the next game of the year will be made with love and non-predatory practices and stuff like that. They are one of the best companies in the world for this. They still do the same shit. Baldur's Gate 3 still had a 3-day early access if you purchase the deluxe edition of the game. That's my point. Everyone does this. We just have to determine the level of acceptance. And I find that hypocrisy fascinating to me. So I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Again, I haven't found too many real scientific studies on the actual pure gaming aspect of this. There were a few Chinese studies that went over gaming addiction and the correlation to this, but nothing specifically for this. So if you guys have any literature, I would love to read it because I would love to be more educated about this topic. But I just found it interesting to talk about. So that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.